Hello, this is Joe Pearson, the Planning and Environmental Services Manager, and this is the presentation for the study session to provide direction on advancing accessory dwelling unit regulations authorized under California Assembly Bill 1033.
A request was made that staff provide information regarding the implications associated with implementing Assembly Bill 1033 or AB 1033. The intent of the legislation is to create opportunities for home ownership by allowing property owners to create an accessory dwelling unit as a condominium. This would allow an ADU to be sold along with the land upon which the ADU is located. AB 1033 authorizes a local agency to adopt a local ordinance to allow the separate conveyance of the primary dwelling unit and ADUs as condominiums. This is a change from prior law, which was AB 587, in that the separate conveyance in ADU was prohibited except in limited circumstances. The intent of the new bill would be to create home ownership opportunities for lower income and first-time home buyers. There are advantages and disadvantages, as well as unknowns, that should be considered in evaluating this matter. Again, as previously mentioned, there are many advantages and disadvantages that must be considered. Based on staff's analysis, staff's recommendation is to not adopt this ordinance at this time. Lastly, for homeowners looking to potentially subdivide their property, there are existing options under another mandatory state law, which is SB 9. Starting with some of the potential advantages, there is a potential increase in more moderate income units. Whether an ADU is rented out or independently sold does not change how it is counted under the regional housing needs allocation. The ADUs converted to ownership through a subdivision could be reassigned potentially as moderate income units and counted towards meeting the city's moderate income housing requirement. The availability of smaller homes at less cost could provide an attractive opportunity for home buyers who are either currently priced out of the housing market or other buyers such as seniors who are seeking to downsize from larger properties. Addressing a housing need which has been challenging to meet. The bill would also provide for a potential increase in the availability of home ownership opportunities for smaller homes. This is because the subdivision of the property would generate 2 condominium opportunities for each residential site. This would result in, again, more moderate income units, addressing a need that is challenging to meet. There would also be a potential increase in the availability of medium to large sized homes, as the small homes created through the subdivision of ADUs would provide options for those hoping to downsize their residence as opposed to aging in place. They would still be able to move into these small units and enjoy the benefits of home ownership while having a smaller unit that fits their needs. Also, the bill could incentivize property owners to build an ADU. AB 1033 requires that an ADU be completed prior to the recordation of the final map associated with the condominialization. AB 1033 will convert rental units into ownership units. That said, AB 1033 could incentivize some property owners that were previously not interested in building an ADU for rent to develop an ADU with the intent of selling it. And then lastly, implementing this law could result in an increase in property tax revenues in the city. The primary residence and new ownership ADU would have separate property tax assessments. It is expected that the remaining single-family converted property would likely be reassessed to reflect a smaller lot size, and therefore property tax assessment associated with that property would likely be less. However, the newly created ADU property would have a separate property tax assessment, which may result in an increase in assessed value and thus an increase in property tax revenue. However, it is unknown if this would result in a nominal increase in property taxes. There would also be potential disadvantages to implementing this new law. There would be impacts to workload. The 2021 to 2029 housing element establishes a series of housing programs to be implemented by staff through the end of the 2021 to 2029 housing cycle. These programs were adopted with the housing element as they implement the established goals and policies of the 2030 general plan. As this new law was not contemplated in the housing element or general plan, there would be a need for the reshuffling of workloads to prioritize this effort. This would result in potential delays to the work plans and priorities established by the adopted housing element, without any real proof that the new law would increase housing production. Also, under existing ADU requirements, parking is often not required for the construction of new ADUs. It can be reasonably anticipated that due to the potential sales price of an ADU being above the low-income range associated with rental ADUs, a higher number of occupants would be associated with the purchase of an ADU as opposed to the same ADU being rented. Therefore, additional parking demands could reasonably be associated with a for sale ADU. One of the other potential concerns would be the loss of housing to investors. Under current state law, cities are prohibited from requiring the owner of the primary residence to reside in either the primary residence or any of the ADUs, meaning investment ownership is allowed now. However, AB 1033 is a potentially more profitable option to investors. This potential is based on the assumption that a subdivided property is more valuable than an undivided property, so the return on investment would potentially be higher. This investment-driven competition could further drive up existing home prices. Also, another disadvantage is the lack of affordability restrictions. HCD considers ADUs to be affordable by design when available for rent. However, AB 1033 does not include any affordability restrictions. Therefore, they would not be limited to low income or very low income groups. Also, there would be an impact to the inclusionary housing ordinance. ADUs added to residential projects are not subject to the city's inclusionary housing requirements. Therefore, opting into AB 1033 creates a means for potentially getting around the city's inclusionary ordinance, as ADUs could be added and sold, putting them over the threshold. However, they would not be subject to the inclusionary ordinance because the base development was under the threshold for qualifying under our inclusionary housing ordinance at this time. Also, the implementation of the new law could result in the loss of units typically affordable to lower income households. AB 1033 could impact the affordability projections in the housing element for market rate developers to circumvent the inclusionary housing program. The construction of ADUs over and above with stipulated housing element in the lower income category helps the city fulfill the lower income housing category, which is typically a difficult income level to satisfy. Opting into AB 1033 would be at the expense of construction of rental housing for persons of lower income due to the fact that, as information provided by applicants have shown, many of the ADUs offered for rent fall into the very low or low income category. In addition to the potential advantages and disadvantages, there are complexities that are likely to stall interest in an AB 1033 program, resulting in very few properties actually utilizing the program. One of the requirements under or for any subdivision is they must obtain approval from mortgage lenders. Mortgage lenders typically lend differently for single-family residences than condominiums. Condominium mortgages tend to have a slightly higher interest rate compared to a loan for a single-family home because lenders need to compensate for the additional risk of financing property in an association. This requirement alone could stall the potential use of an AB 1033 process, as the financing costs, availability of condominium property lenders, and the current high mortgage interest rates all present financial hurdles. Also, the complexity of the subdivision process could lead to less people taking advantage of AB 1033. The complexities include the need to hire a licensed surveyor to prepare the subdivision documents, as well as a real estate attorney or consultant to assist in the preparation of documents necessary to form a homeowners association and associated CC&Rs. Speaking of homeowners associations will also be required for each of the new condominium units, which could also present additional hurdles. Also, the projects would require the consent of current lien holders. So no subdivision under AB 1033 or any subdivision under the Subdivision Map Act can be recorded without the consent of any lien holders. If the lien holder refuses consent, then the ADU may not be subdivided and separately conveyed. Given these financial hurdles, staff believes it is unlikely that the average homeowner will take advantage of an ordinance implementing AB 1033. One alternative that is currently available for those looking for something similar is SB 9, which was signed into law in 2021 by Governor Newsom, which was referred to as the California Home Act. Essentially, SB 9 facilitates the creation of up to 4 housing units in the lot area typically used for one single-family home. Many saw this as the end of single-family zoning, as the law required all local agencies to ministerially approve either a one-time two-lot subdivision and subsequent development of up to 2 units per resulting lot, or the development of up to 4 units on a lot that is not subdivided. However, the proposed subdivision or development project is required to meet certain qualifying location and development criteria. While there are some differences in the specific standards, similar to AB 1033, SB 9 allows for the subdivision of existing single-family residential lots. Some of these differences include that SB 9 is not applicable to parcels located in multifamily residential, commercial, agricultural, mixed-use zones, etc., even if they allow for single-family residential uses as a permitted use. Also, while SB 9 applications must be ministerially processed, the law includes development requirements that address some of the concerns previously identified that could result from the implementation of AB 1033. Under SB 9, there is a requirement for off-street parking up to 1 space per unit. There is also a 3-year owner occupancy requirement that may help prevent some of the investor competition. Also, there's a requirement that the rental of any unit created pursuant to SB 9 be rented for a term of longer than 30 days. While the city has not yet processed any SB 9 applications to date due to the technical complexity associated with the subdivision process, which is shared with the AB 1033 process, the option is available for residents looking to process a small lot subdivision, which would again provide for those smaller, potentially more affordable units that people could purchase. So based on the city's experience with SB 9 and the lack of interest in it, it can be reasonably assumed that there would be a similar lack of interest in AB 1033 due to those same technical difficulties, despite the fact that the SB 9 process is a ministerial process. There is no financial impact associated with this item as recommended. However, should the city opt in, a significant amount of staff time and resources will be necessary, including analysis and development of a comprehensive ordinance to address the implications of the bill's implementation. Again, opting in may lead to an increase in property tax revenue if the city chooses to implement the bill. In conclusion, for the reasons stated in this presentation and in more detail in the staff report, staff recommends that the city not opt in to implementing AB 1033 at this time. There's no compelling need for this option as a means of incentivizing ADU development, given the significant increase in number of ADUs constructed and under construction in the city of Oxnard. Staff will continue to evaluate housing unit production, inclusive of ADUs at all income levels, with the intent of achieving production in all income groups. This information is reported to HCD annually, as well as we will monitor how and if this bill is being implemented in other communities. Given the current ever-changing environment of housing policy, there may be a time that voluntarily opting into AB 1033 may be beneficial for Oxnard, and staff would return to City Council with additional information and recommendations at that time if it makes sense for the city. The Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee approved 3-0 on March 12, 2024, to approve the staff recommendation and to forward the item to City Council for determination. Therefore, based on the information Staff recommends that the City Council receive and file the information provided in this staff report and determine that the City of Oxnard should not implement Assembly Bill 1033.